So I might be a little late on this one, since according to my Steven Universe video, there's actually like a whole section of critique over the latest episodes that I missed, but this is something I wanted to tackle for a while now, so I'ma do it. I swear it's not a bullshit stretch to capitalize on Season 2 of Attack on Titan. I swear to God, I just noticed the similarities partway through scripting and I figured it'd be a hilarious comparison. No, if you wanted to see me really trying to get views, I had an earlier video on Attack on Titan in the works about trying to make Titans more creepy. So what we want to do is we want to add features to this that have threatening associations. So let's just add this here, and perfect, this didn't work at all. Alright, both Lapis and Mikasa are pretty fan favorite characters, but what's interesting about the fan reaction to them is there's also a pretty large subsection of their communities that thinks they're bad characters. And I would theorize that that reaction is branching from the same concept. But what is it? In Mikasa's case, if you search around, you get a lot of general claims about her being 2D, stuff like Mary Sue, flawless, and undeveloped get thrown around a lot. And a lot of these don't make as much sense as I think people think they do. I mean, she's pretty humanized, and she does show emotion and compassion. She has a couple of funny lines here and there, and she's certainly no robot, and there's enough backstory to justify why she's like the way she is. Oh my god, thanks Aaron, this is so And she has that whole dramatic moment in her character where she changes her outlook. Now, some of these complaints I have gripes with just in general as concepts, but we'll get to those another time. I think 2D is definitely getting there, but it's still a bit too vague to really learn anything from. If you search around for the most recent complaints with Lapis, most people talk about not liking the personality she has in the most recent episode, with her being a kinda laid-back, sarcastic, aloof goof. A lot of people use the term emo or angsty teen, and at first I was like, well, that's not fair. The reason people don't like angsty teens is that their problems are greatly disproportionate to how they're acting. Which, you know, doesn't really apply if you were trapped in wet hell for 6 months of your life. Especially given how big of a deal Fusion is made out to be in the show. But then I thought to myself, this is the same thing as me saying that Steven in the earlier parts of the show is a problem, and then people vehemently tell me that Steven is justified because he's a kid. But the point isn't whether or not he's justified. The point is, I'm spending time with a character whose actions themselves are irritating and hard to enjoy. I think that's probably where I should be homing my criticisms in future, because my god, I'm either wrong or I'm arguing it poorly, because people keep saying this. You know, when you start asking whether or not X is a likable character, you start to get into this very fluid justification argument. That's another complaint you see for both Mikasa and this character early on. You can say, well, in Mirror Gem she tries to drown these kids, or, well, she took the ocean and sure, when she put it back it was like splish, but it really should have been like... It's okay, Lapis, if you combine your water powers with Pearl's salt, you can make a new ocean. But then in her defense you can be like, oh, well, she's been trapped in a mirror for thousands of years and she didn't know, or she was desperate and wasn't thinking straight. And in return, the other person can be like, well, she should know about how humans or the tide works from the Gem War. And then in return, you can be like, well, that was over 1,000 years ago, she forgot. And that shit can keep going, and it's fucking... ugh. When you're dealing with such a fuzzy medium as storytelling, which is inherently interpretive, and unlike the real world, doesn't have like a true existence to it, you have so many potential focal points to draw attention to and change how people interpret it. Justifying character actions is really no different to fan theories in that regard. And this is all part of a bigger video I'm planning on, so for now let's just call this messy and try looking at something else. Whoa, not that, Jesus, that's not, oh, people seriously do this? That needs a warning on it. Okay, perfect. On the topic of Lapis's personality being hard to spend time with, I'm not particularly convinced. I mean, there's been Lapis hate even before her new personality. Same Old World was 19th of May, this comment was at least a year ago, and at the time I took the screenshot it was only May 8th. Also, why is there no hate for characters like Raven or Zuko? They're way more angsty, right? For that matter, there are plenty of these Kudere type characters like Mikasa who you'd think would be two-dimensional, but no one seems to hate them. Now I can definitely identify where the love comes from, just so we're clear. Both of these characters make very strong impressions as powerful characters that matter. They're both easily the strongest characters to have debuted at that point in their respective shows. Lapis is a little less so, but both of them do and say a lot of cool things. And Lapis has a couple of other admirable features that put her on a similar level of love to Mikasa. She's very sweet and kind and yeah, definitely still has a large degree of power though. And I get that people sort of look at this and go, oh, being strong doesn't make a good character, but this is an extension of characters being likable. Just as being nice or well-mannered are positive traits, being strong and competent are the same thing. Well then, does that mean I can just make a really strong character that dominates the entire series? Yes! Yes, you can! But it's not actually as easy as you think, because making engaging conflicts and tapping into other engagements can be really hard if you have a character who should be solving all of it with the tap of a fist. Also, no, I reject the idea that One Punch Man is purely a comedy. Some of the fan responses do not give that impression at all. And the amount of reception videos like this get also reinforce that idea. So if there are reasons to love them, what's with the hate? Well, I don't think it's malicious, if that's what you're thinking. It's not just people hating for the fun of it, otherwise you would see similar effects in everything that's popular. In fact, the hating something because it's popular idea seems kind of strange to me in general. I think it's far more likely that popularity is just kind of forces people to form an opinion on something. That's just gonna happen if you run into something enough. So when I started looking at what's different about this character, that's when it hit me that Lapis and Mikasa were both really lacking in depth. Not literally, of course, Lapis has a lot of that. Lapis and Mikasa have objectives as opposed to opinions. Lapis wants to go back home and Mikasa wants to protect Eren. Whereas Ghana is passionate about fusion, Pearl has her feelings about Rose, and Amethyst has her sensitivities about her creation, Lapis and Mikasa don't feel particularly personal. In fact, take away the badass and you kinda get Eren, who's barely loved at all. I mean, it all feels fairly reactive, doesn't it? Wanting to protect someone you love or take revenge is a pretty natural reaction to losing a parent, isn't it? So it doesn't really make this character stand out in their opinions, and it feels far from being personal. In fact, I think this is why Armin feels like one of the more deeper characters in Attack on Titan. Armin's got this passion for the outside that gives him a much more human feel. And Eren has this too, but it's quickly lost for another objective, and then it returns a bit later, and then it kinda goes again. Although it's worth noting that there's a point in Season 2 where he disobeys orders just to kill his first Titan, and he just seems so genuinely happy about it. I honestly kind of like him a bit more now. Apparently a lot of the characters get better in the manga, and I'm starting to see this a bit, so yay! Granted, Mikasa has her feelings about the world being a cruel place, and that's definitely getting there, but it's relevant for 2 episodes as the backbone of why her character is like that. But after that, those opinions don't directly play into her actions in the same way as, like, I don't know, Zuko's feelings on honor push him to become the world's unluckiest lightning rod. The cruel world made her cold, so she is traumatized and acts cold, rather than the cognitive thought process of the world being a cruel place playing into her actions. And besides, this world isn't that cruel anyway. Wait, Asians are extinct? Oh god, it really is the apocalypse! I really shouldn't share my fetishes, but I was running out of jokes for the video. Back onto the hate, you can also see the same effect as Mikasa on Levi, but not quite as much, and I think that's partly because he's such a clean freak. It's just a little bit more personal. Given the information I had available, I was led to an idea that I'm now going to dub engagement imbalance. If you watch my video What is Good, I talk about a collection of core engagements that are the source of all enjoyment. In that video, I also say some people align better with some engagements and have biases to others. So it makes sense that if a character lacks heavily in one of these engagements but does really well in others, the character will be really liked by a bunch of people who align with those engagements and be completely confusing to the people who don't align with those engagements at all, because they are much better aligned with the engagements that character doesn't have. Need proof? Hanji. She doesn't have as many badass scenes as Levi or Mikasa, so you don't quite see the same level of love, but there is no hate in sight. Well, okay, apparently there is in the manga because she becomes super stoic, but as far as the anime goes, you can't find that hate. She's fairly well loved by the whole community, and that would be because she's easily the most distinctive and most opinionated character in the show. She's passionate about the Titans in a way that no other character is. Unlike Mikasa, her opinions are constantly visible through how she acts, rather than an opinion she formed years ago being ingrained as her personality. Additionally, you try searching for hate on Ghana or Sasha Blouse, and you get similar results. Both these characters have actual passions, and I know I keep noting purely passions, I think it's just a common character depth, but I mentioned before that Amethyst has her sensitivities rather than passions, and that made her deep for me. And with characters like Rei, who you'd think would get hate but don't, you can also find opinions there too. Rei is barely ever seen before episode 5, and on that episode the thing she's passionate and opinionated on is immediately visible. But what's really interesting to me is that this concept can be applied to pieces of entertainment in general. I think there's a damn good reason why Brotherhood is the most widely accepted and appreciated anime. It balances so many different core engagements. Good characters, moving plot, good villains, no fanservice, it's frequently smart, powerful high moments. Whether it's the best of the best is to be debated, but I think the fact that it has a good mix of everything is crucial to its reputation. Some people might not like it as much as everyone else, but no one is ever going to watch Brotherhood and find none of the engagements they align best with, because it carries all of them to some degree. And in turn, this finally gives me a solid theory on the hate groups thing I'm always talking about. So, if you don't mind me, I'm gonna start rewatching Fairy Tail, because I have a video to make. Although, don't expect it anytime soon, because there's like 100 and fuck that episodes and whatever.